So sorry about that. There will actually be two videos now for the Archangel Uriel video because I was trying to close out a window, and instead of closing the window out, it opened that window that I was trying to close, the notification in the top of the screen. I should have just left it alone and let it go, but that's how it is with technology sometimes. So one little touch, just, yep. So this is Archangel Uriel Part 2 already, even though I'm still just continuing exactly from where I left off. I haven't gone anywhere or done anything. But on page 11 in this book, I think a lot of you are going to resonate with this paragraph. In the silence of nature, thoughts grow to be waking dreams, and dreams become visions. It's really just God experiencing and imagining itself, and so it manifests more forms. I imagined how in this solemn solitude I might remain for the rest of my life. Perhaps sharing my habitation with a few congenial friends. I imagined how, united by common interests and having identical objects in view, we might be happy and obtain knowledge together. Here, far away from the superficiality and shallowness of common life. A far greater clearness of mental perception, a much deeper concentration of thought, and a much higher conception of the truth regarding the mysteries of nature and human beings might be obtained. How much would our senses be sharpened to perceive external and internal things? How much would our knowledge of self increase? What should we care about the tomfooleries of what is called society? What should we care to know about what is going on in that great insane asylum called the world? Here, we could live undisturbed within ourselves, unpestered by the necromantic practices of society, which daily and hourly force us to go out from ourselves, to appear where we don't desire to be, compel us to act as we don't desire to act, to bow down before the goddess of fashion whom we despise in our hearts. Would such a life be useful for us and useful for others? If it is true that the world and we are made up of ideas, then it is just in such solitudes that the best conditions might be found to grasp and remodel ideas. You know, this is really the dream, guys. This is really, what the masters are doing. They're kind of hidden away, watching over humanity, but they're evolving their consciousness as well, without the disturbances of the everyday world that try to always constantly distract you. This is our ultimate destination. Not only as individual practitioners, but as a whole human race. Thoughts and ideas can't be mere illusions. They must have a real existence, as real and perhaps more lasting than the objective things of this world. For we know that ideas outlive the death of the forms in which they are represented. We know that ideas, like other fruits, are born and become mature, and whenever an idea is mature, it appears on the mental horizon of the world and is often grasped at the same time by some receptive minds. I'll read just a little bit more. One who can grasp and remodel exalted ideas and give them material expression may do much more for the world's benefit by living alone and in solitude than by living among the world, where their work is continually impeded by affairs of minor importance. The ideas which they shape won't die with their body. They will be thrown upon the great mirror, the astral light, and be preserved in the world's memory to be grasped and utilized by others. Really, that's the ultimate goal, is to leave something behind for humanity, not just get caught up. That's how my friend always referred to it as. You get caught up, in the outside world. Things distract you, and then before you know it, you're already so captivated by this other world that's really just an illusion, when we really need to go within, and then we can transform ourselves from there. And that's really how we will be able to, affect the world. That's why I always have such a hard time with going to like a day job, an everyday day job. Although I don't absolutely hate it, I can't stand to put in much more than like 20 hours a week anymore, because I know that I'm just wasting my time. It's time that could be spent towards this YouTube channel, spreading this kind of information. It's time that could be used, in music, which I haven't really had a lot of fire to do a lot of music lately. Like, I'll occasionally get the vibe to do some music, or I'll get in the mood, but it's not a lot lately. I just haven't really found a proper way to artistically, I guess, showcase myself in a way and around the kinds of people that I even want to share my art with. Music's been kind of a touchy thing for me for a long time now because of just some of the things I've gotten involved with. The music world really kind of opened me up to a lot, and I saw a lot of the darker elements and darker sides of things. That it's really a lot of the times just about the drugs and the money, and it's not about the love of the music itself. There's usually some kind of like social agenda or something like tied in with the music. And I was always about raw talent. I just wanted to show people without all the trinkets and toys and stuff, the technological stuff, how as a raw drummer, I was really have skill, and I have for a long time. It's the one thing I kind of do pride myself in is like my drum skills. I'm not a mere beginner, but I'm definitely not the best out there. There are so many great drummers out there, so many people I've seen in person that can really just outdrum me, but they deserve it. And I will exalt such drummers. I'm like, oh gosh, I can really learn from this person. It's refreshing to see somebody that's better than me. That's the way I feel about music anyway, is I can learn from others. So to get away from all that, these videos were supposed to be about Archangel Uriel anyway in the first place. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Let me get my notes that I've written thus far. So these notes, we're just going to start in the beginning, and then in the future videos we'll get more into these actual notes. But Archangel Uriel, these notes come from the Legends of History video on YouTube. So if you have not checked out the YouTube channel Legends of History, please go and subscribe to their channel and support what they are doing, because they are one of the resources that I pull a lot of information for, especially on angelic entities for this channel. So let's get into it. A little review on archangels, because I think it kind of does this at the beginning of each one of his videos. Archangels are thought to be spiritual beings that radiate an incredible light and bring forth blessings and wisdom. Each archangel represents a set attribute and is responsible for fulfilling certain missions for God or Source. Serve as chiefs to all other angels in the heavenly court. I kind of put a question mark at this because, as we know, archangels are not really super high up on the angelic hierarchy. There's like 10 different orders of angels, and I think the archangels are actually like the 7th down or something like that, or maybe it's the 8th down from the top. The seraphim actually reside at the top. So according to angelic lore, it's confusing to know which, where each angel, like the archangels, really reside. I guess it depends more on your system. And it really depends on, don't take any of this stuff as dogma. It's really your internal and your personal experiences with Source and with the Spirit, which is really most important. Like, I'm not trying to just create more dogma and more confusion on my channel, like, so that people think they have to follow this stuff. This is all just to help you in your spiritual journey. If the archangels are for you, great. They help me and my understanding and my practices. But if the archangels aren't for you, that's fine. Work with a set of spiritual entities, or archetypal forces that work better with you. Please do that. Do not take my word, just take everything with a grain of salt, basically, because I'm pulling things from other resources as it is anyway. And I just kind of give my little, spin on it. Archangels bring about God's ultimate plan, as I call it, God's conspiracy. God's the ultimate conspirator. Uriel means fire of God, ironically, with him being the earth angel in ceremonial magic. And we're going to get into that a little bit in this video. Since I haven't taken much notes on here, I'll go ahead and jump into Damien Eccles' Angels and Archangels, and then also Donald Michael Craig's Modern Magic. It appears there are some characters with this name in the Bible. According to my Bible dictionary, the 4 angels which stand around the throne of God are the 4 elemental archangels. And I've heard different versions of which angels surround the throne of God, but this particular book, the Bible dictionary, which is actually an old book, it's like falling apart. It's on my bookshelf over there. I think I've maybe shown it in videos prior, but it has Raphael, Gabriel, Michael, and Uriel as those 4 angels that surround the throne of God. which makes sense because the 4 elemental animals, we've talked about before, the bull, the man of Aquarius, the lion, and the phoenix are the 4, angels of the Ezekiel's vision. Archangel Uriel is maybe less likely to visit compared to some of the other angels. He does seem to kind of hang in the background compared to the other 3 angels, and I've noticed this even in my practices with visualization. He is the one that seems to kind of, he or she, however you want to get into the personification of this universal archetypal force. We'll talk more on this later in this video and more in the upcoming videos, but he usually does seem to not really like be so bold and in your face like when you first try to visualize Uriel. Like he kind of comes in as this gentle energy, usually accompanied by, if I've got myself, spiritually aligned and energetically aligned, I see Uriel in the more like, I guess, celestial form. There's different versions of these archangels that kind of seem to, for me, have popped up over the years. Uriel actually used to be, I'll go ahead and get into it, kind of this darker like figure for me. It was almost like Uriel had like these darker robes and carried a sai, a sickle, instead of like a chaff of wheat or whatever, which is kind of the more angelic or less demonic degree of Uriel, because each of these angels, as we've seen before, like Raphael has a part of him that like resides in the underworld. We talked about that in the Raphael videos. So I'm sure there's a darker side to Uriel, which we just haven't gotten into yet. But through my practices, I just kind of know that. I just intuitively understand that there's a darker side to Uriel as well, since it's the angel of earth in the north. In like a temple is considered the place of darkness typically, because it's analogous with the element of earth, so it's the place of darkness. Let's continue though. He or she, depending on how you view it, I originally saw Archangel Uriel, as a he, male, but then I did start to see more of a feminine side. But nowadays, I typically do envision more of a male figure, and usually try to envision Uriel in the woods, accompanied alongside like peaceful animals. They're very much attracted to Uriel's earthly nature, and he's very kind-spirited. I do get that energy from like the more heavenly aspect, the higher degrees of Uriel. Just this more grounded energy compared to the other angels. The other angels are a little more, like kind of reside in the higher spheres, whereas Uriel will help ground you a little bit, and usually carries, plenty, the chaff of wheat and all that. It's representative of Virgo, which is an earth sign, but it's also a sign of plenty, the crops. They were all the pagans, and a lot of the older traditions had like fertility rites and all of this stuff. They would even, I think, take their period blood. Women would, the menstrual fluid, and put it like in the fields and stuff. And that's where like witches riding broomsticks originally came from, I do believe, is they wanted their crops to grow. So they'd go out into the fields and use the broomsticks and like jump up and down to visualize and see the life, blooming and such. Just a little bit of lore on that stuff. I'm not a professional in any of this stuff. This is just little bits of interesting information I've picked up along the way. Uriel doesn't seem to be responsible for any particular task, which is interesting. Michael's a warrior, Gabriel's a messenger, Raphael is a healer / demon slayer, which I mean really Michael's a demon slayer too. Gabriel has some battles as well in the lore. And we've talked about the difference between the lore and like really learning these angels on an archetypal level. You do want to take the lore into account, but it's more important that you have like the internal, experience of communing with these angels, which are really just higher aspects of yourself. They exist within and without. Uriel represents arts and science. Arts and sciences, that's interesting. In the Testament of Solomon, he is considered the third archangel and seems to take the place of Raphael. His name means God is my light, signifying, of course, he is not worshipped, but that God is. So his name means God is my light. That's another meaning of the name. He is an extension of the Lord's will. When you do the Kabbalistic cross, it's not my will be done, it's thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Thine as in our highest self, that which sees and knows all. It's all recorded in the Akashic records. His main appearance takes place in the apocryphal book known as the Second Book of Esdras. It is thought to have been written by Ezra, a scribe and priest of the 5th century before the Common Era. The first 2 chapters of the book focus on the long monologue by God condemning the Israelites for not being thankful for him, for forgiving them of all that they had done. And goes on to say how he intends to forsake them. It's kind of in lines of if we don't feel, thankful for the Spirit, the Spirit, which is our own highest self, will abandon us, if we're not really trying on this path, if we're really just taking it all for granted. The second chapter sees Ezra having a vision of Jesus Christ and learns here from an angel that those that stay loyal to God will be crowned and receive the greatest of blessings. Ezra is also tasked by God to preach his word to the Israelites, letting them know how angry he is with them, but that those who are repentant, he will show mercy upon them. They will be shown mercy. So by the 3rd chapter all the way to the 14th chapter, things get interesting. This section of the second book of Esther is otherwise titled the Jewish Apocalypse of Ezra. Hopefully I wrote those notes down right. It consists of 7 visions that Ezra experiences, all of which are revealed in detail to him by the Archangel Uriel. I probably meant to say this section of the second book of what is the name of this book? Esdras. That's probably what I meant to write, not Esther, because Esther's that's a book that's actually in, I think Esther's maybe in the New Testament. I really need to learn my Bible books better, especially as I'm getting into more of this angelic lore, but I'm going to continue as soon as I find my place. But anyway, this book is thought to have been written by Ezra, a scribe and priest of the 5th century before the Common Era. Oh, I already read that part. So, the 3rd chapter. By the 3rd chapter all the way to the 14th chapter, things get interesting. This section of the second book is otherwise titled the Jewish Apocalypse of Ezra. It consists of 7 visions that Ezra experiences, all of which are revealed in detail to him by the Archangel Uriel. Ezra tells us that he is in Babylon, and that he becomes troubled by certain thoughts he is having pertaining to the desolation of Sion and the wealth inherited by the Babylonians. He becomes anxious and confused at these thoughts so much that he puts in a long-winded prayer to God, detailing that those repentant of the Israelites still suffer. So they're repenting, but they're still suffering, that their labors have no fruit, and that the men of Babylon have taken their land, that many children are dying, and that many of them are suffering. And see, we kind of see this theme in today's world, the hunger of this Babylonian force, which seeks to kind of consume the world in a way. It's this never-ending hunger. It's this never-ending consumption. People don't know how to just sit still and be at peace and not really always have to take and take and take. And this world, there's so many material objects that go through our hands in this lifetime. What is the real essence of all that? What are we really gaining from all that? This moving around of objects, always never being still and being silent and being at peace, but always being distracted by these external things. It's the world of Babylon. We live like in the modern day Babylon. And I think the chosen people really are kind of like these Israelites in a way. It's like right now, temporarily we might be suffering, but remember that kind of suffering is only really temporary. Our spirits, which are eternal, which is our highest self, knows and sees all. And if we stick true to that and we know that Source has our back, we're going to be okay. We're going to be all right. But there are trials. And it's these trials that actually will, can lead one to be like an ascended master or something. A lot of these people, like the people who are in the mountains, in Shambhala, it was amazing perils and trials that like got them to that place, that got their soul, so they did become a real adept and ascended master. It takes a lot of experience and pain and knowingness. I mean, look at Jesus Christ and the sacrifice that character, laid down for. He was an incarnation. According to this book, Jesus, very interesting, is an incarnation of one of the three trinities of the Eastern, Vishnu, the preserver. I think there's multiple incarnations of Vishnu, and it is said that Christ was one of them. I think that's really interesting. Let's continue, though. So the Babylonians have taken their land, many children are dying, and many of them are suffering. Meanwhile, the Babylonians and the enemies grow stronger, wealthier, and grow in every other aspect, despite them worshiping false gods and subjugating them to such horrors. Basically, worshiping external forms rather than the internal essence is really, the real meaning of worshiping false gods. The 4th chapter sees Ezra receive an answer from God in the form of Archangel Uriel. So this is where Uriel really steps in here. Ezra tells us, this is book 2 of Esdras, chapter 4, verses 1 through 2. Looks like, and the angel that was sent unto me, whose name was Uriel, gave me an answer, and said, Thy heart hath gone too far in this world, and thinkest thou to comprehend the way of the Most High? ? Basically saying that Ezra can't begin to fathom the will of God, or realize the plan in its totality. And I think this is something a lot of us spiritual people probably struggle with. It's something that I struggle with. It's like I have to know the why. I have to know the why did this bullcrap, seemingly bullcrap, have to happen in our lives? Why the pain? Why the trial? Why the affliction? But God really knows the ultimate plan and sees ahead, our highest self, and knows what's best for us. And we have to put our trust in that, and that's kind of what's being said here. Basically saying that Ezra can't begin to fathom the will of God or realize the plan in its totality. A higher state of consciousness which man cannot reach. It seems like an injustice what is happening. The Israelites who are God-fearing, they're really repentant, are suffering, while the enemies thrive. But this is God's intention. God truly does work in mysterious ways. It is, in fact, no injustice at all. And before I forget to mention something, I might keep referring back to this book. It was so good. There was so much interesting information in here. I think no matter what your spiritual practice is, you should get this book. This was interesting, I thought, though. From ancient sacred texts, it is evident that the planetary spirit of the earth is the Lord of Sirius, the star system. Besides, even the Quran states that Allah is the Lord of Sirius. However, it should be borne in mind that the God described in the Old Testament is not the supreme Lord of the earth, whom Christ calls his Father in the New Testament. We've talked about that a lot on this video before, the demiurge being the ruler of the physical world, the God of the physical realm. Some people consider that to be Lucifer, or that Lucifer or the devil or the demiurge, they're all Satan, they're all one and the same thing. But we've kind of differentiated those names a little bit in some of my prior videos, like Lucifer, Devil, and the Devil Explained, that series. That was a fun kind of series to get into, and we could really expand upon that too. I also know there's somebody who wants me to do a video on like Pythagorean music and stuff like that. We're going to cover the subject of music and the occult significance of music. And music is something that's a huge part of my life too, so that's going to be a really fun one to cover. I just need to get some notes together probably, or I'll just read straight from the Secret Teachings of All Ages, and then we'll get right into it. I'll give some of my own personal music inputs and theories on some of that stuff, but I have a lot to learn as far as the actual mathematics and scales of all of those correspondences go. But it doesn't really tell which being, it doesn't say in here which being the God of the Old Testament is then, unless it is this Lord of Sirius or whatever. But unless that's the one that Jesus Christ is said to have come from. Jesus is even said to have been a Pleiadian before, so it's hard to know for sure. Sorry, I'm getting off track. I tend to do that. We need to wrap up these notes so that the next video we can really get into further notes on Archangel Uriel. But yeah, we were getting on to, this is God's intention. God truly does work in mysterious ways. We can't really understand the inner workings. It is, in fact, no injustice at all. Job also asks why he suffers despite being righteous. God demonstrates the gap in their knowledge. He goes on to say, you cannot possibly understand the plan. Ezra, however, shows a little more resistance than Job, and does accept the fact that he doesn't have the knowledge to understand, but he does ask Uriel to explain it to him. But here's what's interesting. Uriel cannot explain it because he does not know himself. And that's the thing with these angels. We've talked about the definition of angels and archangels a little bit before. They work more like it's like computer software or programs. They're programs of the ultimate divine source, and they kind of just do their function. They don't think about it so much. They just trust in that highest divine source, and they know that that's their higher self. So they kind of just, play out these wills and do their jobs on these planes of existence. And it's really more the fallen angels that have more of a self-reflection. They identify more with themselves rather than being, just caught up in the workings of the macrocosm. They're less autonomous, it seems like, and they're more self-aware, which is really where the fall comes into play, which is interesting, because I think self-awareness leads to empowerment, and that's really, when we come back to source, we're gonna know ourselves better, because we don't just automatically, carry out the will of source, but we knowingly will have the information to know better the next time around. So Ezra shows more resistance and does accept that he doesn't have the knowledge to understand, but he does ask Uriel to explain it to him. Uriel cannot explain it because he does not know himself. Ezra still wants an answer, and the more he talks with the angel, the more he wishes to know. He begins to ask about the end times, but is still not given a direct answer. And that's actually where my notes end for now, as far as the lore of Archangel Uriel. So let's go ahead. Of course, I've referred to this book many a time, Angels and Archangels by Damien, and we're just going to read this little section on Uriel. And there's his sigil, or her. Uriel has a special place for those of us who practice magic. He watches over and guides us, especially when it comes to divination. That's kind of interesting. Uriel is the archangel of the earth element, and the season connected with him is winter. We associate Uriel with the north, and his arena is anything having to do with the physical realm, particularly health and finances. So if you need grounding, if you need physical manifestation properties, like him and Sandalphon, I would say, are the two archangels that you're going to want to work with more. And I did wear green today too, to kind of give the Archangel Uriel vibe. Didn't wear a tie today. I'm gonna have to wear one tonight anyway, so I wasn't really ready to put one on yet. Maybe for the next Uriel video, or the third one, because I know it's going to take, these Archangel videos seem to take at least 3 videos to kind of, go through all the information. Keys to visualizing Uriel. Forest green robes, holds a pentacle, a 5-pointed star, or on a round disc. So the pentacles, this is technically a pentacle right here, since it's in the middle of a circle, the pentagram. And it's also on the tarot, the tarot suit of pentacles. And that was one of the things I forgot to say when you're envisioning Uriel. The darker aspect of Uriel kind of has darker robes, more of a, black or shadowy, figure that holds a scythe. But then the lighter degree, or the more angelic, quote, version of this archangel, wears forest green robes, can hold a pentacle, as I forgot to say before, or a chaff of wheat, signifying plenty. Sometimes you can imagine him or her holding both. And that, yes, even though Uriel, I often envision as, a male figure, it's a more feminine archetype. It's a more feminine energy because Earth is, of course, mother. The mother element is that which imbues or takes on the effects of the other angels. Also on page 33 here too with Uriel. That's a cool little side note thing to notice. Another key to visualizing Uriel is anything associated with winter. So cold, crisp air, a frozen landscape, clear sky, etc. Some reasons to invoke Uriel: to assist with divination, for anything involving finances, to obtain material goods and wealth. So it seems like a good archangel to, bring about. Maybe if you want to look at this for a second and pause the video, maybe do a quick meditation on some material manifestation and abundance with Archangel Uriel. But for time's sake, I am going to continue into modern magic. We're going to go over the descriptions of Uriel here. And notice I only covered Uriel once in this book because there is only an elemental, Uriel. There's the 4 elemental archangels. Now, Raphael has a Tree of Life version, and Gabriel also has a Tree of Life version, and Michael has a Tree of Life version, but Uriel does not have a Tree of Life version. So this is the one that you call about in the LBRP. In the normal, curriculum of things would be the only time that you really invoke Uriel. But I highly recommend working with the different angels, and when you're doing like a lesser invoking ritual of the pentagram, try invoking Uriel in all 4 directions, when you need material, manifestation and material abundance. So in this, when you get to that step in the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, or the lesser invoking ritual of the pentagram, to your left, visualize a figure dressed in greens and browns on a fertile landscape. So the earth, you can envision, I usually see the forest with the animals and all of the earthy, nature elements. And I usually, I'll try to envision mostly a green robes, almost primarily green with maybe just an outline of brown. Because brown, I associate, that color more with Sandalphon. Or some people say Sandalphon, but I usually say Sandalphon. I don't really know what the quote correct pronunciation is for that. So to your left, visualize a figure dressed in greens and browns on a fertile landscape. The figure holds some sheaves of wheat. Okay, that's where I got that from. Say, and on my left hand, Uriel. That's how Donald Michael Craig, has the pronunciation of this archangel. So Uriel. And the last 2 syllables are the ones that are pronounced or accented. So it's Uriel. You emphasize that last syllable. Unless you're like me and you use the great voice, I usually vibrate these names. For the past couple years, I've mostly vibrated the names, in my mind rather than externally vibrating them. I really like to be, I have to be in a place where I know that, nobody's going to hear. And the walls in this house are actually really thin. You can hear like really loud noises, just next door. So don't really need to all the neighbors knowing what I'm up to, getting into this stuff. It's better if we keep our practices silent a lot of the time. That's why I was really against doing a YouTube video about this kind of stuff in the beginning, but then the Spirit really spoke to me and said, there's people out there who are really craving for this kind of information. And all of this information has been like building up inside of me anyway for years and years now. So it's time for me to become a teacher and start explaining some of this stuff. And of course, the sacred God name, which is associated with the pentagram on your left-hand side when you're facing the east, is Agla, which is a notaricon, which is basically, it's an abbreviation of a longer phrase, which I cannot even remember what the whole phrase is. But that's fine. Basically, all you need to know, and I've talked about it in my videos before, we've covered all this stuff. Most of this is review. But the name Agla means my Lord art great forever. My Lord art great forever. So it's a good one to end, complete the seal of pentagrams on when you complete your circle. Yod He Vav He means it's the union of spiritual or archetypal masculine and physical masculine, and spiritual or archetypal feminine and physical feminine. It's the union of all four of those. Adonai, when you vibrate that name, it means my Lord. It's the more fire element aspect of God. The warrior. My Lord is always at my side. That's why it makes sense for, Michael to be vibrated in the south, and then the west is Eheye, which means I am that I am, but a better translation is really I am what I shall be, because God can manifest as anything, because God is the all, and really even beyond the all of which has been manifested in the Ein, which is the no thing, which is not only beyond all manifestation, but it's all potentiality that has not even yet been manifested. That is really what God is. It is all potential, whether it's actually come to fruition and seen actual manifestation, or whether it hasn't. All the potential resides in there, in the Ein, the A-I-N, in Kabbalah. All right, everyone, so I think that definitely is a good start. I wanted to go ahead and get started on Archangel Uriel today, and I think that's a good start. It'll probably take, I'm guessing, like the others, it'll take another 2 videos, to get through this angel all the way. And then hopefully it helps you. The ultimate goal is so that it helps you in your individual practices and helps you to get a better connection with these archangels, which are really aspects of ourselves. We contain the whole cosmos within. The angels, the devils, the demons, the gods, all of this stuff, it's within us. And it's time to really come within and be aware and clear our minds and clear our internal space and our internal temple for the divine spirit to have a dwelling within, so we can manifest that externally here in the world, manifest heaven on earth. So if you made it through this video, if you've watched my other videos, heck, even if you're just subscribed or you like my stuff, you support what I do, you are so much appreciated and loved. It's cool to really be able to meet people who are on this level of understanding, and we really meet eye to eye. We're having that third eye connection. We're having that conscious connection. We're working from, the connections on a higher level. This is consciousness connection. Christ's love is truly connecting on those higher planes of existence. And it's not just about like forgiveness, and it is about those things, but it's also about meeting people on a level where we can really be appreciated. And that's where the stronger that energy gets, the stronger that we grow in Christ consciousness that way, the more we can have empathy and compassion for all the others of the human race, and we can all kind of get on this train together of like ascending our awareness and coming together in peace, love, and understanding, and burning away all the negative attributes of the past, of negative karmas that have accrued. Really just, it's like in Dante, Paradiso, where the spiritual fire burns away and cleanses all. They say that fire is the fits with the Archangel Uriel being the fire of God. It's that which completely transmutes the fire of God. I was just reading something about how the highest version of God is like the fire, that which the divine spirit, the pure flaming essence and awareness will purify and exalt all. So thank you, everyone, once again. Thank you for listening to my rambling. Hopefully you get something out of this, and I will be returning shortly, hopefully, with some more info, some more material. So peace and love, everybody. Take care, and until next time.